Goodwin Adkins. If you'd like to go ahead and come up. Mr. Philip Garcia has dropped out of the race. He dropped out, I believe, a week or two ago. And Reverend Sonia Brown is at another engagement this morning. Okay, gentlemen. Dr. No and Mr. Adkins. Go ahead. Dr. No, I'll let you go first. Go ahead and have a seat, Mr. Adkins. Please tell us how you stand. Please introduce yourself, first of all, and tell us why you're running for City Council.
Michael No, spelled a little bit funny, you may have seen it on the news, but it is pronounced just Michael No. We've switched it to Mike to make things easier for everybody. As most of you have seen probably over the last few years, our City Council has evolved into one that's pretty quick to raise taxes, to add fees, and then turn around and raise those fees as well. This seems to be a move, and a majority, not all of them, but a majority that seems to think that bigger government is better, that government can provide everything for us. And unfortunately, I disagree with that. Now, in their defense, I've seen where they've tried to make cuts, changes in budgets, and they've looked hard and looked where they could make cuts. Unfortunately, where I've seen that they've made cuts is in areas that I think are essential to the city, things like the police department. We've allowed our police department to dwindle to dangerously low levels. This at a time when our population here in El Paso has got unprecedented growth and the violence just south of us as well. Well, the city then, the government, excuse me, I lost my place. The city needs right now somebody that's going to go up there and remind everybody that it's the taxpayers that are the people they should be listening to. And I intend to do that. The city needs to run more efficiently, like a business, and not a political bureaucracy. And I've ran a business for the last 10 years, very successfully. The city, I believe that if it's ran more efficiently, like a business, we can make cuts in areas where there's waste, and then, if it's necessary, because of the things coming down from the state funding cuts, if it's necessary, we can make cuts in areas that is non-essential. Areas that we can make cuts without jeopardizing our safety, things like the police department, fire department, etc. I think that if we have to, we can make those cuts. It'll be done with the taxpayers' consent. If taxpayers want non-essential services, then they can vote for them, and they can vote to have their taxes raised, if that's what they want. Otherwise, I believe I'm the person who can stand up there and say no. We've got too few people up there who's able to do that right now, and I intend to be one. And that's why I'm running for City Council.
Good morning. George Atkins. I want to thank the Greater El Paso Republican women for inviting the candidates here for this wonderful breakfast. My aspirations to run for City Council, I guess, go pretty deep. I've been involved in community projects for quite a number of years, working behind the scenes. Ever since 1994, I retired in 1995 from a business that I was vice president and general manager of, and thank God it was extremely successful. And it wasn't my doing, it was, I had a lot of good people, and I applaud them for that. I want to make a positive difference, and I want to do that by being a true voice for the constituents of District 5. And that means holding meetings, being a full-time representative. My platform is simple and straightforward. Honesty, commitment, common sense, accessibility, and accountability. And I would ask each and every one of you, regardless of who you vote for, exercise that very important right to vote, and your voice and your vote does count. Thank you.
taking turns with who gets the question first. Please tell us how you stand on the issue of health insurance for unmarried city employees.
Had I been on city council, I would have voted against that, plain and simple. It's not as plain as I can put it.
Okay, Dr. No?
This has become quite a big issue in El Paso, and the issue is plainly for unmarried couples. And it was voted down. Unmarried couples shouldn't receive health insurance. But what it's grown into, as we all know, is should we extend health benefits to gay couples? That's what it's evolved into. But that's not what they put on the ballot, and that's what we voted for, was unmarried couples. And as it stands like that, I'll stand by it. Unmarried couples should not be given benefits from the city. We cannot, however, discriminate by any means, by race, creed, political views, or sexual orientation. If what they mean to say is, should we not give benefits to gay couples, then that's what they should say. And if the city has to come up with some form of definition of what a gay couple is to give them equal rights as a married couple and traditional values, then they need to do that. But as it stands right now, as married couples, the people voted it down, and I would stand by it today.
Very good. Go ahead and keep it, Dr. No. Okay, the next question. List your top 3 priorities and specify how you intend to pay for them.
Well, obviously taxes. You pay taxes by writing a check. The top one right now is taxes. Everybody's really worried about that. How are we going to fund these things that are coming from the state? Am I given 2 minutes or 1 for this?
2.
Okay, I can explain a little bit. State funding cuts are going to be a huge impact on us. And our leaders right now have come out and publicly said, don't worry, stay calm, all is well. No services are going to suffer from this. It simply means that the funding is going to be shifted from the state to the local level. And what that simply means is they intend to raise your taxes. So I intend to stand there and look for ways to avoid that. I'm going to look for ways to keep from raising those taxes and fees, which are the same things, to listen to my constituents. If they want their taxes raised on certain issues, certain government services, then fine. Come to me and tell me if that's what you want, then we'll do it. Otherwise, the answer is no. Safety. I intend to rebuild our police force. I intend to fund them the way they should be funded, and I intend to reestablish a working relationship with them. And of course, growth, economic growth and development, smart growth, economic growth with the businesses that we have. The majority of any economic growth is with local businesses. 80% of your growth is through that. Support our local businesses. I want to put strong emphasis on that.
Okay, Mr. Atkins, your top 3 priorities and how you intend to pay for them.
The top 3 priorities in my book, number 1 would be safety. Safety for the citizens of El Paso, not just District 5, but for the citizens of El Paso. And in order to do that, we have to have a police department that is able to function without being stretched to the limit, because the rubber band is going to be breaking pretty soon. I've worked very close with the police department for many years, and let me tell you, it's been an eye-opener when you were on the other side. And these people go through a lot, and unfortunately, when the bad apple comes up and the press jumps on it, they forget about all the good that the police department has done. The second issue, I think, is a quality of life issue in our neighborhoods, whether it be graffiti, speeding, parties, drinking, getting out of hand, just anything that deteriorates the neighborhood and your home values. That needs to be addressed and taken care of. And thirdly, I like to see the Franklin Mountains stay the Franklin Mountains, and I'd like to see El Paso no billboard city. To accomplish these goals, we have to hold the line on spending. As Dr. No pointed out, when these cuts come down from the state, it's really going to be a rude awakening. And it's really sad that we're all told to be budget-minded and practice austerity, but the people who are supposed to be our examples and our leaders are the biggest spendthrifts of all. There's a lot of fat in City Hall, and a lot of that can be eliminated, and that money can be diverted to the police department, quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And go ahead and keep your microphone. Mayor Cook has signaled he desires to run again. Where do you stand on changing the current rules that prohibit a new term, and why?
I'm assuming the rule is 4 years. Is that correct?
He's only able to serve so many terms, and this is supposed to be his last term. But he's said that he desired to run again.
I wholeheartedly support a limit on elected offices. You can get in an office and you can just be there too long. And when you're there too long, you know, God bless your hearts, you may start it out with good intentions, but somewhere along the line, you just get in a rut. And the only difference between a rut and a grave is the death.
He has signaled those intentions, and he's brought it up, and it's met with strong opposition. Now, there's, you know, an issue here of, you know, the problem of a person setting up a machine that keeps him or her in power when they really shouldn't be. But then there's also an issue of somebody telling us that we can't vote for who we want to vote for. And those are conflicting issues right there. But right now, the city is spoken, and there are term limits. And I would not fight to change that, because, like my friend here, I believe that you can be in there so long that it's just time for some new blood. New ideas, fresh ideas. The same thing year after year doesn't allow for progress sometimes. And so I certainly want reasonable amount of times for everybody to be in there. And 8 years for a city councilman right now, I think is a reasonable amount of time. I don't know too many city council people that would want to be there more than 8 years. After that, they either want to move on or get out. So yeah, no, I would not support increasing the term limits, although I do see the point of telling somebody that they can't vote for who they want to. I think that the better good, though, is certainly going ahead and limiting those terms.
Okay, Alderman, no, go ahead and keep the microphone. This is saving time right there. We're fortunate. All right, please give us your opinion on how and if the police department should process law violators who are also in the United States illegally.
Well, the issue has come up, and it's more than that should police be doing federal jobs? Should police be looking for people that are here illegally? And because that's the big question right there. And to answer that, I say no. I don't believe that our police force should be tasked with doing what the federal government is tasked with doing. We don't have the money to pay for it, and it's not our job. We should have the federal agencies doing their job. We'll do ours. However, if somebody in the act of a crime and is being held for that is noted to be illegally in this country, I certainly support the police officers in notifying the appropriate authority at that point. But on routine stops, like we've all been through, where they check your driver's license or something like that, I don't want anybody asking my family for their citizenship papers, birth certificates, or anything like that. My wife is Hispanic. Many of my children are either Hispanic or half so, I guess, and I don't want that to happen to them just because their skin's a little bit more tan than mine. So, as just a blanket rule of having our police officers check people for their citizenship, no, I won't support it in any way.
Okay, Dr. Atkins, go ahead. Mr. Atkins, go ahead.
I agree with Dr. No's assessment. There's going to be some spillover in anything due to the fact that there is law enforcement out there. And as long as this is done with temperance, fairness, I don't see this becoming a problem in El Paso. However, since we are so close to Mexico, yes, there is probably a lot of opportunities. But I don't believe that any law enforcement agency that I have spoken to, Border Patrol, Sheriff's Department, Customs, the City Police Department, is actually targeting or profiling these individuals. And I wholeheartedly support that they do their job, and they do their job the way they're supposed to do it. But when you start getting off the track, or you get an aggressive officer in whatever law enforcement agency, and he decides that he got up on the wrong side of the bed that day, and he's going to make somebody pay, and the press gets a hold of it, yeah, it's going to get blown out of proportion. But the underlying feeling in El Paso, I believe, is not to profile or to go after people just because they think they're not here legally, or because of the color of their skin, or any other factor.
Okay. Next question. Mr. Atkins, what city and county services do you advocate consolidating?
Oh, that's a good question. And I attended a meeting one time. I'm on Chief Allen's advisory board. And as best as I can remember, and I didn't bring that paper with me, the way I understood what went on at that meeting was that as far as a consolidation, that it has been done as far as it can go without getting into Texas law and all of these other things that would prohibit this from happening. They are closer now as sharing information. The 911 calls go into a common receptacle so that everyone has access to it. They share information, they share intel, forensics, all of this. But as far as seeing, say, one police force, if you will, with one uniform to serve the county and the city, I think if this would have been possible, there are other cities in Texas that this would have already happened in. So I think, you know, if we can work closer and just have the communication and the cooperation that we have right now, unless something really changes drastically to merge the two, and I mean merge them in the true sense of the word, we should continue the way we are at this time.
Okay, Dr. No. What city and county services do you advocate consolidating?
Well, there are several that have been brought up, and I agree with Mr. Atkins on the police and sheriff's offices. I've sat at the table with all of them at the same time, and I've gotten their views on it. And this is a complicated issue, and it's been done before. I'm not aware of any in Texas, but certainly other places have consolidated and formed metropolitan police forces. But I've told them the same thing I'll tell you, that I'll do it if you can just, you know, meet the criteria. Show me that it's a more efficient way of doing it. If by consolidating that it's more efficient. Show me that it's more productive, that it'll work better. And also show me where everybody wants it. And right now, when you speak to each individual agency, you can't find any of those where it'll be more efficient, more cost productive, more productive in working, or that anybody really wants it in those departments. So I wouldn't support consolidating our law enforcement at all. As far as the other one of the other ones is, of course, the school systems, and where you can possibly see some savings. Overall, I don't see a whole lot of savings, but that's one that might be looked at, and one that the state may even require in the near future. as a potential savings. It's going to be complicated, but again, it's got to meet those same criteria. Show me where it's going to work, where it's going to be better, where it's going to save us money, where everybody agrees on how to structure it. The parks is another one. And I really am nervous about consolidating the parks, especially including in the Parks Authority. It could eventually turn into something, although right now it's set up to where it's not going to be, but it could eventually turn into another taxing authority. It's going to have parks from all the little surrounding communities as well brought into the system. Are our tax dollars going to then be spent to upgrade those little cities' parks to the level that ours are? I'm a little bit nervous about consolidating the parks. Right now, about the only one I would consider would be possibly the school districts, but that one's a tough sell as well.
Okay. Dr. No? Please give us your opinion on the privatization of garbage collection.
Well, I'm a businessman. I think that the business can do pretty much anything better than government can do it. Once you get the government involved, it becomes a bureaucracy, and they just seem to, well, let's just, if we need more money, we'll just take it. Instead of, we need more money, let's figure out a way to earn it, like businesses have to do. So, I've spoken with both sides on this, too, about the possibility of privatization of it. The city certainly doesn't want that right now. They seem to be going in the exact opposite effect. In fact, they've made moves breaking agreements and contracts with the private companies we have right now that is costing us money, large amounts of money. We used to be able to have our city trucks on the west side empty their trash at the Camino Real dump on the west side. Now they're required to drive all the way from the west side out to Clint and then back, costing us time and payroll. These guys are sitting in the truck driving, costing us gas. And we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in gas every year. And why? Because the city just wants to break off the agreements with the private industry, costing us money. I think this is one of the areas where it's just inefficient. And the bureaucracy sets in, we can do it, it's going to be paid for by the taxpayer, so let's do it. It's wrong, and it needs to be changed.
Okay, Mr. Atkins?
I think the city should stay out of the garbage business. Yep. They have enough dirty laundry. It's not right to strong-arm businesses and say, we're going to do this, and we can do this because we can pass laws or ordinances that'll effectively put you out of business. I mean, are we in the United States or not?
Okay, very good. All right, Mr. Atkins, the smoking ban in El Paso has hindered legitimate tobacco businesses the opportunity of increased sales. Similar establishments in other Texas cities, like Houston, Dallas, Austin, and San Antonio, allow smoking in places that cater to customers who patronize these establishments, which have installed ventilation systems that adequately transport smoke from the building. As it currently stands under the pertaining city ordinance, non-smokers still have to deal with secondhand smoke that have been moved outdoors to the doorways and causeways of most buildings. Would you be in favor of making an exemption for shops that have these ventilation systems and derive 100% of their revenue from cigars and other smoking products?
Well, I think we go back to an age-old habit of if we're going to get some more money, let's get it out of people that have vices. And, you know, the pack of cigarettes, I remember I used to buy a carton for my boss. I've never smoked in my life, nor do I intend to. But I used to buy a carton for him when I'd go over to Juarez for $2. I don't think $2 would even buy one cigarette today. And I have, you know, that's a person's own choice and everything, and should they choose to smoke and they know the dangers or whatever, that's their business. They should not be hampered if they want to go somewhere and have a good time. If a bar or restaurant or whatever has an area that is properly ventilated, and this can be proven that there is not any secondhand smoke in, and you know, these people are complying, then I would support that. I mean, why not? I believe in living and let living.
Okay, Dr. No?
Well, now, you're talking to a physician here about allowing people to smoke cigarettes, so when I spend my days trying to talk them out of it. I'm an ex-smoker, so I know the addiction. I quit, my last cigarette was October 15th, 1998, and I'll never smoke another one because I know what it does to you. As most women in here, the doctors will tell you, the number one killer of women is heart disease, and smoking is a contributor to that. The number one cause of cancer death in women is cigarette or lung cancer. So it's a dangerous habit. And it's a habit that our society, thankfully, is drifting farther and farther away from. Now, as an American, though, I don't like to be told what to do. So now, again, we have a dilemma. Now, there are establishments, as she mentioned, where their sole purpose of being there, tobacco shops, is to sell tobacco. And these establishments, people go there because they want tobacco. You don't have any other reason to go there. If there are establishments set up like that, I can see that. As a physician, I abhor it, but as an American, if people have the right to make bad choices. And that's your right. And smoking cigarettes is a bad choice. It kills you eventually. And there is some evidence that secondhand smoke can hurt them as well. Everybody knows that little kids of smokers have more ear infections, etc. I could go on and on about cigarette smoking, guys. So I wouldn't support putting it back in all the restaurants and bars. However, if there are those that have, like Mr. Atkins said, areas set aside that can be proven well ventilated and away from other people that want to have nothing to do with that, then that's a possibility. I would listen to that. I will sit at the table and listen to those ideas. But we've all been in restaurants where the smoking and non-smoking line was just an imaginary wall between two tables. And that's not much of a no smoking zone. The poor person next to that table is getting the full brunt of it. So, on very limited means, I would possibly allow it.
And now you have time for closing remarks. You have 2 minutes for closing remarks.
Well, thank you. I would like to thank everybody here for inviting Mr. Atkins and myself and everybody else to this event, giving us the opportunity to sharing with you our views and how we feel about them and how we would vote on them. You need to know that because you need to exercise your right to vote. You need to talk to your children to exercise their right to vote as well. The city is far too apathetic in this basic right that we share in America. I hope that you've gotten to know me a little bit. I'm a rational man. I'm a family man. I'm a man that's trained in analytical thought. Certain professions are just that way. Engineers, physicians, we're given problems and we're trained on how to solve them. So I feel that I have the training, the means, and certainly the desire and the time to serve the city. And I want to. If you'll give me the chance by voting for me, I will pledge to give it my full efforts. There will not be any part-time city council person up there with me, as Mr. Atkins has mentioned with him as well. We will devote adequate time to the city to make sure that its needs are cared for. Thank you.
Thank all of you for being here. I really want to let all of you know I appreciate being here and finally meeting Dr. No. I think we talked on the phone and we've tried to get together, I don't know how many times in it, but sometimes things happen better.
You can't hang so much.
Yeah, sometimes things happen better just spontaneously or when they're not planned. I do want to urge all of you to please vote and talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, talk to your family, and maybe those that have kind of gone by the wayside or say my vote doesn't count. You know, it's just a waste of time and everything. Believe me, it is not. It's a right that we need to take very, very seriously. I'm old-fashioned, I guess. I still believe in of the people, by the people, and for the people. On a closing note, if I had to do it all over again, I think I've become a vet of the hundreds and hundreds of homes that I have visited. Nearly everyone has one or more dogs. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much, District 5 candidates. Now we're going to get ready for District 6 candidates. If you want to come on up, and everybody can stretch your legs a little bit. At this time, while everybody's shifting around, Tony Gabriel, he's the chairman now of the UTEP College Republicans. Tommy, would you like to come up and make an announcement?